So with the World Cup coming up, I was Googling what African nations made it to the World Cup. Just cause, I like to have backups. It's not like a patriotism, it's just, backups. Nigeria did not make it through. Oh! Yeah, I know, and I'm used to us at least being in the qualifiers, And it made me think, Afcon was earlier this year, how did we do there? And we lost to Tunisia in the round of 16s. Though, in the women's Afcon, we made it to the semi-finals. So, thank you ladies, the currency is not doing the best, but at least something's coming back home. I was chatting about this at work, and my colleague was like, wait, didn't this happen in February? Yeah. And you're only talking about it now? Yeah. Okay, Obi. Well, excuse me, Bob. There's a war in Ukraine. Bob, UK inflation is crazy. Bob, and there's a lot of stuff going on, okay? Bob, you're the one who brought this up, bro. Ignoring the tone, it's the truth that I didn't know as much as I liked about the African Cup of Nations, the most prestigious sporting event going on the continent. And one of the first times newly independent African nations came together standing in their national identity to build a stage made for them, by them. So, here's something nobody asked for, a brief history of the African Cup of Nations. Okay, so we need to go back to 1956 to the Avenida Hotel in Lisbon. Why Lisbon? I have no idea, but at the same time, why not Lisbon? The national associations of Egypt, Ethiopia, South Africa and Sudan came together to form the Confederation of African Football, or Confédération Africaine de Football, or CAF. Second one sounds coolest to me. They came together to have a meeting, and I think it went something like this. We have fought. I say we have fought not to survive, but so we can thrive. It's too early, my guy. And now we play football! Except for the black people. Probably something like that. And so the HQ of the Confederation was born in Khartoum in Sudan, and the first African Cup of Nations was held in 1957. The first tournament had 3 participants, and they would have had 4, but South Africa, no black people. Apartheid, man. And it's kind of crazy to think about it. It's 2022 at the time of this recording. 1957, that was just like 65 years ago. That's grandparent years. Honestly, it's parent years for me. It wasn't that long ago. It's mad. Anyway, Egypt, Ethiopia and Sudan were the teams, and so it began the first Afcon with Egypt versus Sudan, and it was an intense game. Egypt narrowly won, just managing to take the game 2-1, beating Sudan, and then it was Egypt versus Ethiopia, the first ever bloodbath, yes, bloodbath, with Ethiopia thrashing the country, destroying them, leaving them with nothing but their flag and their freedom, winning the game 4-0, and then nothing. That was it. 2 matches, the first ever Afcon. Yeah. First time's always quick, am I right? But still, what a moment. The first ever Afcon. And so it went like that for the first and second tournament. But for the third one, something changed. See, 1957 is an important year because it was the year that countries like Ghana gained its independence, signaling what some would call the period of decolonization of Africa. That's right, African countries were getting their freedom, and the first thing they wanted to do was play football. We have fought. Some of us are still fighting. I said we have fought for our freedom. Wakanda forever. And now is our time. Black people, football. And it was over this period of time that African legends of football were being made. In 1963 and 1965, Ghana took home the cup. In 1996, South Africa, now de-apartheided, won the cup for the first time and only time on their home turf. And in 1980, Nigeria won the cup. And it was over this period of time that you also started hearing about these African stars like Segun Odegbami, Papa Kamara, Petit Sori, Osei Kofi, and in more recent years, Kanu Wankwo, Samuel Eto'o, Didier Drogba, Ahmed Hassan, Rigobert's song, and so many more till today's stars. And it's crazy, when it started, the teams to watch were back then just Ethiopia and Sudan, though nowadays it's Egypt, it's Cameroon, it's Ghana, it's Nigeria. The amazing thing is that touring through the growth of Afcon is not just taking a look at the growth of African football. You're looking at the advancement and the growth of the continent as a whole. Let me explain. See, as you can imagine, over time, the level of competition began to increase. And the game, whilst remaining fun, began to represent something a bit more. It became a platform to spread political values and ideals. For example, in 1996, when South Africa hosted the tournament, the Nigerian players met with General Abacha, the then military ruler of Nigeria, to boycott the tournament due to fear of security in South Africa, who equally criticized Nigeria for the hanging of several activists in the country. See, when countries were not able to make the tournament or had to then back out of being a host, it was a show of potential economic and political instability, as one's investment into their national teams was a show of pride, putting your best foot forward in front of your fellow African peers. It just goes to show how big of a deal this tournament is. It's a celebration of freedom, of African diversity, and national identity. Now, I wish that was the end of the story, but no. See, naturally what it means to be African is fighting against European resistance. See, at the beginning of every year, there tends to be a clash between the African Cup of Nations and Premier League fixtures, which means that there's this clash between club managers and country club managers on the release of their African players.
C'est sûr que les clubs ont la hantise de cette canne-là. Mais nous, notre canne, c'est important pour notre pays. C'est important aujourd'hui pour notre continent. Je suis désolé, un joueur de football peut avoir 12 équipes où il peut évoluer. Mais il aura une seule équipe nationale. Donc, quoi qu'il puisse dire, jamais, je le dis, jamais, les clubs ne seront au-dessus de nos drapeaux et au-dessus de nos équipes nationales. Et tout Sénégalais, je le dis ici, qui évolue en Europe, partout où il sera, moi personnellement, s'il est compétent, on l'appellera pour qu'il vienne défendre les couleurs de la nation. Parce que quand un Brésilien, sa fédération a besoin de lui, le débat ne se pose pas. Et nous sommes à 5 heures de l'Europe. Hein. Voilà. L'Amérique du Sud, ils sont à 17 heures ou 18 heures de l'Europe. Et pourtant, le débat ne se pose jamais. Le débat ne se pose jamais. Voilà. Et pourquoi le débat doit se poser toujours sur les joueurs africains? Est-ce que c'est anormal aujourd'hui de dire qu'il y a un joueur africain, aujourd'hui en Koulibaly, qui est capitaine de l'équipe nationale du Sénégal? Il y a une CAN avec le Sénégal, on dit que Koulibaly ne va pas venir, il va rester dans son club. It's no sense. Au contraire, pour moi, les clubs devraient discuter justement et échanger avec ces joueurs-là pour essayer de trouver la bonne solution qui peut aider les sélections et aider aussi les clubs. Nous ne sommes pas en conflit avec les clubs. Moi ça fait 7 ans que je suis ici, j'ai toujours essayé de rentrer en bonne collaboration avec les clubs.
It's really never easy, is it? Especially with how much money goes into club football, putting these African players in this very awkward position of club or country. Now, I won't go into too much detail in this video. I'll put a link to an article in the description. But it just goes to show that even in football, being an African carries a lot of weight on it. My go-to thing at this point is usually to say the world needs to know more about Afcon, and the lack of education on the topic is a symptom of the systematic injustice and general condescension towards African nations. You know, big things like that. But as I was researching this topic, I realized how much I didn't know, and even more so how much I don't know about other tournaments happening all over the world and how much it must mean to them. So instead, I think this is more of a letter to self and anyone else in a similar position of not knowing enough about stuff that they should know. The African Cup of Nations is a symbol of one of the first times many African nations came together, identifying themselves on a global stage and collaborating with those around them. It's a contest that should be celebrated, studied, hyped up, not necessarily by the world, but by us. We need to push ourselves to give it the best coverage, our players the best investment of time and, yes, money. Many are already doing this, so not to say it's not being done, but if we want to see ourselves celebrated on the global stage, we better first celebrate the stage that we made for ourselves. Yeah, so in conclusion, my backup team is Senegal. Yo, I'm with you guys to the very end as a backup. Good luck in the World Cup. And if anyone knows any of them illegal sites that I can watch the tournament on, please put the link in the description. No, I shouldn't end on that. But also, if you happen to have the link to watch Afcon, please put it in the comments, because I actually don't know still where to watch it. I googled, I promise. But yeah, hope you have a great rest of your day. Take care. My name's Labina, and I am the African Explainer. Oh boy. My name's Labina, and I am the Africa Explainer. Peace.